Welcome back to the vIQtory podcast. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, alongside, as always, Chris Haddad. And we are incredibly blessed because we have a guest today who is essentially the CEO of traveling around the world and helping people.
Thank you.
It is Dave Meltzer, who is currently the CEO of Sports1 Marketing, which he founded with his business partner, Warren Moon. But beyond that, there's pretty much nothing he hasn't done. He is a best-selling author on the New York Times. He is a philanthropist. He is a keynote speaker. He's a social media juggernaut. And before all this, he was the former CEO of Lee Steinberg, where about $2 billion worth of contracts were negotiated. So, I mean, this is a man who needs no introduction. But David, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Oh, no problem at all. And most importantly, I'm a mama's boy. So you got that one.
Dave, you do so much on social media and with your own podcast too. Of course, I forgot to mention the Playbook on the entrepreneur.com. It's almost tough to talk to you because you put so much out there that, to actually find subjects that people may not know or may not have heard before is definitely a little bit of a challenge for us. But, we normally have athletes on. And of course, you're a sports guy. You've been around sports your entire professional career. But I actually wanted to ask you to get this started. What was your background with sports as a kid? And did you always want to have a career that was going to be tied to sports? Or did that just sort of happen?
Great question, Steve. I wanted to be a professional football player. And so I slept with a football back then. It was a Nerf football. I named him Frankie. I ran all over. I thought my great superpower of sports was I could run scared faster than they could angry. I grew up with 6 kids in a big house, so a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 kids. I learned to juke and jive and run, and so when I finally got out onto a football field, it seemed like it seemed like the Great Migration, the huge Masa Mara, and so much room to run. And it took me a long time before I stopped talking trash. But as I realized at 147 pounds, it was not going to do me any good to make the guys more angry at me. So I finally shut my mouth. And but I love sports. I wanted to be a sports doctor originally, and I went to go visit my brother who was a doctor and told him I hated hospitals. And that's where one of the biggest lessons in life came. Be more interested than interesting is what he told me, because you're an idiot. You want to be a doctor and you hate hospitals. And I'm like, I want to be a sports doctor. They're not in hospitals. But the reason I tell the story is so many people want to be a sports agent, and they know about as much about being a sports agent as I knew at 18 being a doctor. So then I wanted to be a sports lawyer because my mom's philosophy was you're either a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. So I knew I couldn't be a professional football player. I did play in college, but I got my butt kicked, including my first play ever. Christian Okoye ran me over.
Oh.
I still have his signature right here if anybody wants to underneath the hair. But then went to law school. I got accepted to some great law schools and went to my favorite one, which was Tulane, because they had the best sports program. There was no real sports, curriculum back then, but Dean Roberts was the leader. And I ended up, though, graduating. And it's funny because I had a choice to be a real lawyer, oil and gas litigator, or work in the internet. And part of the reason I chose to work in the internet was I could be a customer of sports, right? I could host clients, sponsor events, hire athletes to do appearances. And later on in my career, that skill set, being a customer for so many years, from the CEO of Samsung's first phone division to EveryPath, wireless proxy server, to Thomson Reuters. We had so many different sporting things that we did. I didn't know it, but I prepared myself for Lee Steinberg, the most notable sports agency, because I was a customer for so long. I had a different perspective, and I had a law degree. So all those things helped me instantly get into sports to run the most notable sports agency, Lee Steinberg.
Yeah, and a few things there that I just want to tie together for some of our listeners that may not know. What I also failed to mention in our introduction was that you were the CEO of the first smartphone. So your tech background to mesh with sports, Lee Steinberg really feels in hindsight to be really ahead of the time. I mean, they had you on before the internet exploded to what it is today. And I just wanted to ask you, how did that tech route really help you with sports? It seems like you always wanted to get into sports, but how did that path actually become something of reality?
I'm a visionary like Lee. So to make a decision, you know, in the early 90s that you're going to sell legal research online instead of practice law, instead of trying to be a sports agent, was a big move. It was a big commitment. In fact, my mom, she told me the internet was going to be a fad and I was an idiot for not being a lawyer, you know, honestly. And so I was a visionary when it came to technology, and so was Lee. And part of the reason that Lee hired me, not only was I a customer of sports, not only did I have a law degree and what he felt was great negotiation skills, but I had this extraordinary technology background. And he mentioned to me when we met, I wasn't looking for a job. I was helping a friend for a reality show with Lee. And he mentioned to me how he felt that the entire future of sports involved technology, and that the antiquated presence of most people in sports, the traditional leaders and owners in sports, knew nothing about technology, and that he could leverage my experience into taking the sports agency to the next level, which is ironic because today I co-mentor with Gary Vee in Vayner Sports. And the reason I was attracted to Gary and AJ and Justin at Vayner Sports was because I saw the same thing in Gary and AJ and Justin about social media and social platform and the stage theory for athletes that Lee saw in me with the early days, with the first blog, the first website for athletes. Now I'm aging myself. And I hope, Gary, I hope you watch this, bro, because 20 years from now, like me, you're going to look back and be like, oh yeah, you know, I was the leader in social media and video, and people look at you like, that's so old, dude. You'll be hiring some other kid and mentoring him for the future of technology.
You know what, though? When he looks back in 20 years, hopefully by then he'll be the owner of the Jets, because everyone who knows Gary knows that's what he's been aiming for. And at the rate he's going, he's going to get it.
You know, I'm trying to convince him. I'm the owner of Splice, and I'm here to tell you right now, I own with Meta World Peace, a esports team called Splice. You know, we're League of Legends, Halo. I'm here to tell you, by the time Gary buys the Jets, which hopefully he'll give me a little piece of, by the way, and I know that he'll manifest it, I have a feeling that I can just do a trade for a piece of my Splice, a slice of my Splice, for a slice of your Jets. And my number one right-hand woman is Colleen Malloy, huge Jets fan. And I promise her that if I own a slice of the Jets, that I'll give her a slice of my slice, a little better.
Awesome. Well, before I hand this to Chris, you know, I just wanted to ask you, with you being so close to sports your entire career, you know, do you have any parallels that you've seen between, you know, what makes a strong, you know, corporate team, something that you, of course, you've been around, whether it's legal or just business partners, any parallels between that and what you would see on successful teams on the field or even the court, any arena that they may play in?
100%. You know, I learned more on the field than I've learned off it, and I've been to law schools and business school, tons of businesses. There's four things that I believe are the key foundation to any team, family, relationship, community, state, country, and world. Four simple things. A team that has gratitude has perspective, right? A team that has gratitude has perspective. The past is great, the present's better, and the future is brighter of your team. A team that has empathy or forgiveness is a team that sticks together. They are illuminating the mistakes that we made and forgiving them, right? We understand that. 3, accountability, essential to every team. Every teammate should ask themselves, what did I do to attract this to myself, and what am I supposed to learn from it? Constant expansion. 4, effective communication. Not only emotionally attaching effectively to everybody else on my team, but also effectively communicating to that which inspires me, so that the things that are going through me to my teammates are inspirational, aspirational, positive things that just expand and enhance and accelerate the collective belief of a team, organization, league, whatever it may be. And it especially holds true not only in teams, families, but in the business.
Absolutely. And that's something, especially number 4, too, with effective communication. I coach at a local high school here, and effective communication between the staff, the players, even we see it within vIQtory, too, effective communication, making sure everyone's doing the right thing and is on the right path. It's tremendous. I mean, that's one of the biggest things to make sure that the train's all going in the right direction. Now, how did you develop these 4 concepts?
You know, I was taught and witnessed them throughout my career, mostly by my mom, my uncle, you know, my coaches. But what happened, what really brought it out was when I lost them, right? When I wasn't living by the principles, and all of a sudden, all the winning code that I had, all the winning methodology that I utilized went to crap. And all of a sudden, I surrounded myself with the wrong people on my team. People that weren't gracious, empathetic, weren't accountable, were living below the line in blame, shame, and justification, weren't good people. And you're the aggregate of your 5 closest friends. You're the aggregate of your 5 closest people in your family. And I aggregated the wrong people around me, and I lost that. And so when that happened, I almost lost my wife, because no longer was she connected to the things that she loved about me, which were those 4 things. And so she basically, at 5 feet and 100 pounds, bapped me upside the head, woke my butt up, and said, go back, take stock in who you are, and stock in who you want to be. And I took stock in 4 things: gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication. And through that process, I have regained more than I ever imagined. I went from living in a world of not enough, even though I was a multimillionaire, to a world of just enough, where I had nothing, to now a world of more than enough, where everything comes through me for others, and there's more than enough of everything for everyone in my universe. And
that's great too. And especially the lookout. I think, especially in the world we live in today, just having that positive outlook and that positive vision on life, it just makes everything around you better. It makes you better. You wake up every day happier, and it really does take a big effect on you.
Yeah. And if you guys can help share that word, I know you guys are going to be huge and empower all these people. It's a simple message, Ben. Be positive. Look at things on the bright side. Don't stumble on the roadblocks behind you. Be grateful, empathetic, accountable, and effectively communicate. And we can empower so many people to be happy.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I want to just talk a little bit about, you have your own podcast as well, the Playbook, and it's on entrepreneur.com, as Steve mentioned at the top of the show. For those who haven't seen it, guests like Reggie Bush, Martellus Bennett, Ray Lewis, and a whole mess of others, Tony Hawk.
Patrick.
The list goes on and on. Can you talk a little bit about the Playbook and how you kickstarted that to have it become ultimately what it is right now?
I kickstarted just like you guys are kickstarting yours, and I wanted to surround everyone with the right people and the right ideas. So I don't really talk about sports. I talk about the things we're talking about. What makes you tick? What's the biggest challenges you had? What advice would you give? And it has an entrepreneurial tint. It's a top 5 business podcast. I get great distribution, video wise, entrepreneur.com wise, and iTunes download wise. And the more people that are attracted to understanding what makes Ray Lewis great beyond the football field, what makes him so great, what makes Sage Steele, Danica Patrick, Carrie Walsh unbelievable, right? What makes all these Tony Hawk, what makes Tony Hawk click, right? Yeah. Because he's an extraordinary businessman. He owns $1 billion franchise, right? And he's a skateboarder. So I take it and say, when you're walking the walk and you're following your passion, that's great. When you give it purpose, that takes it to the next level. But the people that I have on the Playbook, they make it profitable. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole boat, man. When you can make it profitable and make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun, now you're living life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
100%.
And, just living your life, living your best life, a philosophy that you've already mentioned is be kind to your future self. So I just was hoping, similar to what Chris just asked, how did you come up with that? And if you could just give us an example of how do you actually implement that in your day-to-day life?
Absolutely. First of all, like anything else, I didn't create anything, right? Everything comes through me. So Lee Steinberg taught me that. And I'll give an example of Lee Steinberg being kind to his future self. Lee Steinberg helped Patrick Mahomes' dad. He represented him. Mahomes was not the greatest. He wasn't a Sabathia Ramirez, Karras, Noakes, all the greats that he, Warren Moon, Mahomes' dad, you guys probably didn't even know played baseball. But Lee treated him equally to Warren Moon, Steve Young, and Troy Aikman. He treated him equally to Sabathia Ramirez and those guys. And he was a man who helped the community. And although Lee had challenges, Lee has a terrible disease called alcoholism, which he has beat and overcome, and has been sober for 10 years now or close to it. Mahomes, right? You pay it forward. Be kind to your future self. By him treating his father so well, he now has what I believe may be, him and Goff, the hottest quarterback in football. and ends up redeeming himself by being kind to his future self. I also learned to have an internship program when I was at Lee's. And so I'm old enough now that I had kids when you're your age that now, run the Tiger Woods Foundation. They work for ESPN. They work for every team. And I treated them with the same respect that I treat the people that have already made it. The same reason I'm on your show right now. I'm being kind to my future self because I know you two guys are going to be really famous. And when I need you, my publicist is going to call you and you're going to drop everything and say, oh, Dave, yeah, he can. We're booked, but he can have that time slot, right? That's being kind to your future self.
Yeah. I hope those words come true, Dave.
They're already true. You just have to access it. They already exist. It's just your job to access it. Trust me.
There's Dave. There's so much that you do. The outlook that you have, your secret sauce that you've outlined for us. I mean, there's so much that you're putting out there for positivity wise, but the way that you're doing it through your different avenues of just social media, being a speaker. Would it be surprised if there's another book at some point? I mean, you're always out there. I just wanted to ask you: do you have a future, a vision for your future? Because there's just so much that you do. How do you organize it? And what do you see? Whether it's 5 years, 10 years from now, from yourself, or even Sports1 marketing, if you wanted to talk to the business level.
Yeah. So, the future for me is good ideas. I'm the CEO of good ideas. And so all the things that you mentioned, from writing books, a podcast, my TV show, Elevator Pitch, Sports1 marketing with sponsorship and media, what I'm doing is capturing good ideas, not only from me, but from others, capturing good ideas, amplifying them on all types of different mediums for perpetual, right? Perpetuating all these different things in all the different ways. So if somebody asks me truly what I do, yeah, I am the CEO that travels the world helping people and being of service. But the way that I'm truly of service is that I capture good ideas, I amplify and share them, and then I put them on all the different mediums that exist. I actually have written 8 books. I'm launching many more books. I have one with Jack Canfield that's coming up next. I have McGraw-Hill deal for a business strategies book, right? We have different types of webinars. I do business coaching. Every single thing that I do, from the sponsorship to the media to the personal brand to Warren Moon's brand, is all about just capturing good ideas, amplifying or sharing them, and putting them on all these different mediums to monetize for other people. My main goal of Sports1 marketing is different than anyone else's. I only have one goal. I'm going to be running this company for the next 10 years with only one purpose, and that's that every employee that works for me is a millionaire in 10 years. I don't know many other CEOs that's their goal. I want to create a platform to empower others, and prove that everybody can make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun if they live their life with gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And that's Dave. I just got one last question here, and I'll pass it back to Steve, and we can wrap up. But we've had former NFL players, current NFL players who have gone through an injury or a low point in their life, coaches who have had losing seasons but have rebounded since. You yourself, you talk about your low point in your life that you had hit. What's the best advice you'd give to maybe even a high school kid who just hurt his knee and is out for the year? Mentally, how do you handle that low point in life and rebound and come back from all that?
Yeah, so I believe that lessons are miracles. And so if you want to search for miracles in your life, you got to learn lessons. And sometimes the most challenging things, I like to think of things not as bad or good, or what I think of them as unexpected, right? Think about it in a non-judgmental, non-energy charged form of unexpected. So losing everything is unexpected, right? Your business not going as quickly is unexpected. Hurting your knee is unexpected. And so it's what we do with the unexpected, the lessons we learn with the unexpected, that make us great. And, I did a charitable event in Philadelphia last night, and one of the guys came up to me almost apologetic saying, you know what, I'm not like you. I grew up rich. I've had everything, but I still do all the good things. And I said, yeah, I'm really sorry you didn't have the unexpected that I had, right? Because this guy was equally philanthropic as I am. He's living his life on purpose with passion and profitability to help others, but he doesn't have the panache that I have, because I can say I grew up with nothing and I did it all that's BS, man. Whether you grew up with it or don't, we all have value. right? The J.K. Rowling, when she sat on the streets homeless in the UK and had a pencil and a paper, she had $1 billion. She's the richest woman in the UK.
Yeah,
$1 billion of value in a pencil and a piece of paper. So we need to take the unexpected, find the miracle in it, and then expand so we're that much better. And so I believe, if don't look at it, anything as negative. You know, I lost everything, tell everything. Probably the most unexpected thing to lose over $100 million on paper. Most unexpected thing, also the best lesson I've ever learned. And the best lessons, the most valuable lessons. And the most valuable lessons are blessings. So if somebody asks you, how is that a blessing? That's how it's a blessing.
Yep, the experience from it all, and being able to realize the experience from it all and realize what's happening, and then put yourself in a positive light. Absolutely.
Perspective.
Yep.
All right.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for coming on. Before we wrap it up, I just wanted to let you have the floor. If there was any last word that you wanted to leave this on, please, now would be the time. Yeah,
it is. Number one, share my stuff, right? I'm at David Meltzer. You can Google David Meltzer. You'll find everything I'm doing, like, Steve and Chris. But the main thing I want to teach people that I wish I would have known when I was younger is radical humility. Radical humility will allow you to ask for help. And anyone out there that feels like they're missing something, that isn't happy, that wants anything, the best thing you can do is search for expertise instead of experience. You don't got to do it all by yourself. Leverage somebody else's experience. That's called expertise. And in order to do that, you need to be radically humble. So you need to be humble in the respect of asking for help, but also humble in the respect of giving help. So if you're passing by somebody, smile. If you see a piece of trash on the ground, pick it up and throw it away. If there's a door to be held open, hold it open. The more good deeds you do, the better we'll all be. And so be radically humble and live a prosperous, helpful, and happy life.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, I really can't say anything else. I don't know how to follow that up. But again, Dave, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, please follow Dave Meltzer on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere, social media, everywhere that you can find him, sports1marketing.com. Dave, again, thank you.
All right. Don't